is just a little recap of the basics of watercolor class that I just did. I tried to save the Zoom call video and it worked, but it didn't show anything of what I was doing. So I'm just gonna give a really quick recap of what we learned. And I guess if I'm going too fast, you can pause the video, okay? Pause it and try what I'm showing you, and then unpause when you're ready to continue. So first we talked about brushes. I like the little pointy brushes because of the way that they hold water and the way they let me do detailed work with the tip, but also I can do wider work if I hold the brush on its side like this. We talked about how the ratio of water to paint is what makes your paint stronger or weaker or darker or lighter. So if you have a cup of hot cocoa, for example, the more scoops of hot chocolate you put in there of the powder mixture to water, the thicker and darker the hot chocolate is going to be, right? So it's the same way with paint. The more paint you add, the thicker and darker your paint is going to be. This is my paint set, and you can use all different types of paint, watercolor paint sets, and they work the same. You start with water and you dip into one of your colors and you rub it around. But see how wet that is? It's just like a puddle, and we don't want to put puddles on our page. If you put so much paint, like let's say I want to paint a little bow, if I have so much paint that it's like a puddle, then it's too much. So this is not too much, this is fine. This is just a little bow. But let me show you what it looks like if you have too much water. It looks like a puddle. You know, like when it's a rainy day and there's a puddle? And I mean, maybe sometimes people use this technique, but for me it's no good because my paper's not thick enough and it starts to really wrinkle up. So that's what not to do, unless of course you want to cover a really large area, then you can put more water and you can cover a large area with that. So that was my practice sheet. I'm going to put that aside. And we're going to paint a little bird. But the way we're going to do this bird is first you're going to draw an egg. Ironic, I know. So you just do a very light drawing of an egg, like this. And the top portion is gonna have another little egg in it. See, sort of like the brain. Just like that. So now we have this egg, and we have this top oval. Then, right here, you're gonna do a triangle like that. Sort of looks like a carrot piece or something. So then right over here towards the middle, you're gonna do a circle under that line. And inside this circle, do another circle. That's gonna be your shiny spot. So we don't wanna paint that in. We only wanna paint this part. Okay? So now we're going to pretend there's a corner here, down in the bottom corner of the egg, and you put a little dot. Then you draw straight down from the top of the top corner of the head bubble thing. Sorry. You draw straight down to the corner. And then we can draw the wing. So you have to bring this down to the side like that, like the letter L. Then from this tip, you're gonna go up to the eye and curve it a tiny bit. Like that. Then we do the legs. One. The leg is about a third, well, just a little less than half of the length of the body. 3 little legs, 3 little toes, I mean, like that, okay? So the way we're gonna do it is, I want this line to be in a little bit, so I'm just gonna bring that in a bit. Okay. Also, I kind of want this to be on an angle. I'm gonna make that an angle, and I'm gonna erase the outside. You don't have to do that, but I just think it looks nicer that way. I'm erasing some of these extra pencil lines. Just be careful when you erase, because you don't want to make the paper so, you don't want to weaken the paper and make it bumpy, because then the water goes right inside the paper and it starts to rip. All right, so first we're gonna start with this big section here, and it's gonna be brown. If you don't have brown on your paint palette, it's okay. You can make brown, and I'll show you how. Take a bit of red, take a bit of orange, and take a tiny bit of blue. Too much blue. Back to red, back to orange. Actually, this is challenging to do it this way, but it is possible. I'm adding some yellow. Now we've got kind of a brown color. It's also important to have a dabber. I just have paper towel here, because sometimes when you have too much paint, you got to get rid of some. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this, I'm gonna fill this in with my brownish color. Now if it's too dark, you dab it and take water, and that's going to be the same color but lighter. So if it's too dark, you just dab some paint off on your napkin, or if you have too much water, like look, there's so much water here, just touch it on your cloth or napkin a little bit and it will come right off, and then go back in and move the water around, and then there's less water there. I kind of want the head, I should have started at the top of the head, because I kind of want the head to be darker. Add a little bit of black. See, now my paper is starting to get bumpy, which means that the paper is starting to lose its coating, its protective coating. So I'm just gonna stop rubbing it, because if I keep going, it's gonna rip it. I'm just gonna let the dog back in. Okay, so that's gonna be drying, and while that's drying, we're gonna do the top portion of the bird's belly. So the top portion of the belly comes down to about here, so just about where the belt would be. Oops, oopsies, I wasn't supposed to do that line. It's okay, the water will get rid of it. So I need to rinse my brush. I actually have a bigger cup of water here, so I really want to clean it so that I can go to another color, see? So once it's clean, get most of the water off on here, and then dab it off on your napkin. But I kind of want it to stay a little bit wet, because I'm gonna paint this with just water first. I'm gonna get a little bit more water. So paint the belly all the way down to just about where the bird would wear a belt. That's okay that that paint smudges down a bit. I actually want that to be that case. Okay. So now, towards the middle, we're gonna put some yellow. Can you see my yellow here? No, you can't. It's actually a mess right now, but that doesn't matter. Take some water, wash off the top until you start to see little bumps of the color you want. See little waves? I can see the yellow that I want. I'm gonna get a bit more water and dab it. When I say dab it, I just mean you do this, just touch, and some of the water will come out. It already came out, so it's not coming out now, but I'm gonna put this on the belly. Okay, so that is way too much. So what do? Dab it and take water and go back in. See? And I want the bottom line here to be a little bit feathery looking. And we want it to blend down in, so it's not a straight line across. It's sort of like a bumpy line. Okay, now quickly, while that's still wet, you're gonna add some red. Get some red, a little bit of water. Put that over here. And you can bump right up against that line. So pretty. Just let the colors mix. Now if you get a straight line like this, like a line where it's like orange then yellow, just dab the paint off and take a bit of water and go between them. And it blends it right out. I want a little bit more orange over here, or orangey red, I should say. See, too much, that's too harsh. So I dab off some of that paint. I have too much. Get a bit of water, go back in. Pull that red right out. See, now it's blending right together beautifully. Okay. So now we have the top part. I'm gonna get rid of the paint on my brush. Go back in the water. Remove the excess water. Now the bottom is a very light wash of bluish white. So I'm just going in, blending out some of that yellow. If you work fast with watercolor, you can blend like crazy. I don't want it too yellow. I want to keep the yellow up here. While that's still wet, I'm going to get a little bit of blue. A little bit of this blue, a little bit of that blue, and water. Is that the kind of blue I want? Maybe not. I'm going to take some of that off using my dabber. I'm gonna get a little bit of water, a little bit of blue. This is how you do it with watercolor. You put water, put paint, take a little bit of paint off, take a bit of water off, add a little bit of water, and it just goes back and forth like that until you really get a feel for what you have. Okay, I have a good tone of blue, but that's gonna look like dark blue if I go right in. So I'm gonna take off a lot of the paint. Just like that. And now easy on the bottom. That's perfect. So now how do I blend this upward? Water. Just like that. Beautiful. Okay. So now since I'm gonna go to the color black, I don't really have to rinse my brush that much. If you don't have black in your palette, you can make black, but you have to mix it the way I did the brown. So you have to take red, yellow, and blue equally, and it makes sort of a black color. But for the sake of time, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna use the black that I have. Black and maybe a bit of brown. Okay. go. Now this part, you have to be careful that you don't have too much paint on your brush. So I'm gonna dab the top part of my brush here. You don't want it to be too much water. Now I don't have enough, see? Nothing's happening. So I gotta go back in. Go back into the paint. There we go. But if you have too much water, you don't want black spreading out around. That would look terrible. Okay. So the beak, I don't know if you can tell this, but the beak has a tiny bit of a curve on top and it's more straight on the bottom. A little bit parrot-like, I suppose. Now the eye is the same color, but we don't paint that little white circle. Just to try to paint around it as best you can. Another thing, if you paint a watercolor beside another watercolor, they will blend together if they're still wet. This top portion is already dry, so I'm good. But if it was wet, the eye would just bleed right out. That's another reason it's important to not use too much water. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of water so that it's nice and slippery, and very lightly I'm going to draw skinny little legs here. Like this. There you go. And I'm going to put a little bit of black on the tip of the wing. See how that's too harsh? So what do? Take off some of the paint, go in for the water. But you have to do this quick. See, it already started to dry. Get more black. Make the head a little darker. If you need to blend, just add a bit of water. Water does the hard part. There we go. Now you can sign your name or your initials. We'll just put Mick. And voila, you have a little watercolor painting. That wasn't very hard at all. I'm just gonna show you the other one that we did. If I have room. Yeah, I'll just do it, this book. Not cooperating here. Move this over. Okay, I'll do it right here. This one you don't have to draw. You just grab a little bit of water, a little bit of brown, a little bit of mixing. I like mixing colors together. You can mix them together on the palette like this or on a plate. And when you move it around, you can see the color that it's gonna be. That's good. I'm just gonna draw a simple little pot. Just draw it using the brush and draw a line here, like that. Paint it all in. Okay. Now, while it's wet is when you can add more. So if you want to add, let's say, a little bit of blue. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the bottom, the side. That's when you can do it, while it's wet. Okay, so dab off my color. It gets green. I'm trying to hurry because I know this is getting to be a long video. Get some greens. Gotta take your greens and this is a nicer color green. Yeah, I like that better. Now we just do an oval. More water. While it's wet, do some more. They sort of stack on top of one another. These kind of cactuses do. And while it's wet, you can add more shadowy parts to the bottom. Bottom of that circle, the bottom of that circle, like that. Okay, let's do another cactus using a bit of yellow and green. I like the kind of green that comes out of yellow and green. It looks really bright and fresh. Let's do this one here. This one is more like just a cartoon style. Got the arms coming out. Whoa, too much water there. Dab off a little bit, get a bit more paint. There we go. You just play with it. You just play around, move it around. I'm gonna do a blue pot for this one. There we go. Get a bit more dark blue. Interesting. Take off some of that color, add some water, blend it. All right, well, okay, the last thing. My light just died, but I'm still gonna show you. You can take a marker or a little pen and do some outlines after. It looks really cool. And do some lines, even though this paint isn't fully dry. I'm still gonna do it just to show you. You just do lines from the top down like that. And it just gives a really cool effect. I can't do that one one's too wet, but you get the idea. And that's it for the tutorial. I hope you guys were able to follow along okay. And sorry about making people wait outside the room. Oh my gosh, that won't happen again. All right, see you next time.